lot of people have been talking noise about the Big Red. When Raiola slings it, you get on your feet, and I want 4 quarters of smash mouth football!
Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning in to Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. I'm your host, as always, Caleb. Next to me is my co-host, Zach. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Obviously, a tough loss to what I do think is an Illinois team that resembles 2021 Illinois.
Yeah.
Actually has a very good defense. Not a great quarterback, but an efficient one. He's a gamer. I was watching the game with one of my buddies, and he was like, "Is Luke Altmaier a really good quarterback?" And I was like, "To be honest with you, no. Like, Luke Altmaier's not going to pop up on anyone's draft boards. Luke Altmaier's not going to do anything crazy this year, but like if it's 3rd and 6 and everyone's covered, like the guy's going to find a way." And obviously that's what happened here. He found a way. And I think that's really good to have on the team. I think we also have some of those. I think Fedoni is one. I think our running back core is one. I think our D-line, there's a lot of guys on this Nebraska team that, may not stand out to pro scouts or may not make it huge at the next level, but are just at the end of the day, like gamers, like I was saying. And so to me, that's really big. But yeah, I think there's a ton of potential. If we don't miss that throw at the end, if we make the field goal, like that game flips. But you look at teams like USC. USC just got beat by Michigan, and on the outside looking in at USC, we're not like, oh, USC's terrible, right? Like USC's still a very good football team, and so the same is true with us. We lost to a good Illinois team, but we're still nonetheless a very good team.
Yeah, we already started talking about it a little bit, so we're going to get into our Illinois review before we get into our Purdue preview. But first, I want to mention our socials. Follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where we put all of our updates. That's where we put all of our extra content. And then also make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Like the video as well. It really helps us, get into the algorithm and stuff to show other Nebraska fans that there is still hope in this season. I think most Nebraska fans are being pretty realistic, and like you gotta realize it's still year 2. There's gonna be some learning curves. We do still have a freshman quarterback, even though he's not playing like a freshman. So there's gonna be some ups and downs. And although it didn't start off 7-0 like we all thought it would, there's still a lot to look forward to. But getting to our Illinois review, as we kind of already talked about, it was obviously a hard loss, but it's a good Illinois team. I think the worst part is, the way we lost, obviously, is just so painful because that's the way Nebraska's lost for years now. Just can't do anything in overtime. I don't even want to mention the stats. They're so bad. But also you got to look at it like that's an Illinois team. Nebraska had every chance to win that game. We just couldn't capitalize. So, yes, we lost the game, but we could have won the game, and you got to use those positives. But I'm going to start off a little negative with my first point of the Illinois game in saying the defense isn't where we thought it would be. As of right now, I think it still has the potential to be. I think the defense has shown this year that it can be a dominant defense. I think Colorado is still the best offense we've played, and we held them to 10 points. I think that's the best defensive game that we've played. Obviously, Illinois is talented. They got some good receivers. I just don't think they're as good as Colorado. I just don't know what's going on with the defense. We kind of saw it against UNI. Luckily, it didn't really matter because, obviously they're just not as talented. They don't have as much depth. But we saw some of the things like running backs falling forward for 4 yards instead of getting driven back in the backfield, not tackling well. Some mobile quarterback was really hurting us. Luke Altmaier came in and showed that that wasn't just a fluke. I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know if it's like a hangover from such a big emotional game against Colorado or what it is. I do think it's going to get fixed. Tony White mentioned that there's a lack of a chip on the shoulder, a lack of motivation, kind of. So Nebraska needs to do everything they can to build back that chip on their shoulder and build back that, want to. Like, just because you beat Colorado doesn't mean the season's over. You still need to go and beat these other teams that you're supposed to beat. And Illinois was one of those teams. Illinois came in and popped us in the mouth, and we just couldn't get it back. So that's my first takeaway, is that the defense just isn't where it should be right now, I think.
Yeah. So my first point, since Caleb went negative to start, I'll go positive. I still think that, offensively, yeah, sure, we didn't play well in overtime at all. It was pretty atrocious, but I think offensively throughout the entire game, you take away overtime, you take away that one overtime pass, it was still a very good team. Donarell is a very good quarterback. Again, his 2 picks of the year, like literally, he could actually have no pick still and 1 more touchdown and 50 more yards.
Right.
Well,
he could have another touchdown too, depending on how that drive ends up going against UNI that ended in the pick.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. And so, and then, yeah. So, yeah, he could have 2 more touchdowns and 50 more yards, but instead he has 2 picks. So that obviously sucks, but still a very good quarterback, still very efficient. The run game still works well. I think the O-line, like I said, outside of that overtime, is still doing well. No need to panic there. Like Caleb said, yeah, the defense isn't what we think it was, or isn't what we thought it was originally, but I also believe that it can get there. The kicking game just has to be fixed, I think, as well. But yeah, my second takeaway really is just that the offense is where it needs to be, I think, for this point in the season. I think as you continue to improve, when we go into the bigger games like Ohio State, USC, Iowa, Wisconsin, and I think we're going to be our best in those games. That's definitely where you want to be.
Yeah. So before I get to my last takeaway from that game, I do want to mention we keep talking about how our defense needs to be better. There are players on the defense playing well, and I think somebody that really showed up against Illinois was Sierra Wright, who came in when Tommy Hill was hurt, forced that fumble on the sack, was really sticky in coverage. He did get the PI, which, it could have gone either way, but proved that, yes, he's probably not as good as Tommy Hill, probably not as good as Buford either, but he's willing to tackle, he's aggressive, and he's a good coverage corner. And it's not going to be the drop-off that we think it is if Tommy Hill can't go on Saturday. So I feel really confident with Sierra Wright and Buford on the borders if Tommy Hill can't go. But my last takeaway was the team needs to learn how to win. And Matt Rule kind of mentioned this, that some players got tight in the fourth quarter when it got close. And I think people have been making a really good point, some Nebraska reporters saying, Illinois went into that game saying, if it's close in the fourth quarter, that's exactly where we want it to be. Like, Brett Bielema has coached in the Big Ten before. He knows that where you want to be in the Big Ten is you want to have a chance in the fourth quarter to go win the game. And with Nebraska, they're like, oh my gosh, it's tied in the fourth quarter, or even we're losing in the fourth quarter. What are we going to do? We're going to lose in the same way we've always lost. And he mentioned the older players as well, so I don't know if it's kind of that hangover from that Scott Frost era, losing all those close games. It's like, oh my gosh, here it comes again. And he mentioned guys like Dylan Raiola and Ja'Cory Barney, and the young guys came out and they're like, we still have a chance to win. Let's go win this game. If you're not ready for it in the fourth quarter, for it to be a close game, it's just not going to work out for you. And Nebraska needs to go into this game prepared for it to be close in the fourth quarter. They need to go into every Big Ten. They need to go into every game expecting it to be close in the fourth quarter. Because if it isn't close in the fourth quarter, great. Assuming that you're winning big. If you're winning big in the fourth quarter, great. Obviously that works. If it's close in the fourth quarter, that's what you're expecting. So just get back to work. You can't be expecting to win every game by halftime, which is what Nebraska's kind of done, except for this Illinois game. So I think that kind of shocked them a little bit. And Big Ten games are going to be 1 to 2 score games going into the fourth quarter. So they just need to be ready for it.
So my final takeaway here, I kind of hit on it a little bit in my first one, but that's just that special teams, I think overall have been a struggle since, I don't know, a long time, obviously, many years. It was under Riley, it was under Frost, it still is. Just doesn't seem like we have the answer to it. If you go watch any of the other teams play, I get everyone looks like, oh, the 39-yard field goal, but like, dude, it automatic inside 40. Most, ranked teams are automatic inside 40. Outside of 40, it's here and there. Outside of 50, it's iffy. But inside 40, I mean, there should be no way you miss those. And even on the punt side, right? Bushini was incredible the first couple weeks. He was incredible against Colorado. He was great against UTEP. He was great against UNI. And then this week just came out and just didn't look great, which seemed to be the whole thing with most of the team this week. But yeah, special teams is a part of the game that a lot of people overlook, but it really is such an important part. Whether it's field goals, punts, punt returns, kick returns, kickoffs, just huge, such a huge part of the game.
Yeah, especially in the Big Ten. Matt Rule, his motto all offseason was chasing 3. Like, you lost so many games by 3 going into this year. You're gonna be in close games that come down to field goals. If Nebraska makes that field goal at the end, who knows what happens? So it's just like, yeah, go on. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you want to look at a successful Big Ten team, as much as it pains me to say it, Iowa has found a way to have a god-awful offense and win a lot of games. And that's because they have a really good punter, a automatic field goal kicker, and a dang good defense. And so, yeah, they're going to win most of these games 14-10 or 10-7 or 17-14. Cool. At the end of the day, they're winning games. And so if we can just, get the field goals, get the punts, get the defense fixed, plus we have this explosive offense, I mean, I do think the sky is the limit for us.
Yeah, for sure. So getting into the Purdue game, we're going to do our keys to the game, and then we're going to give our score prediction as always. I'm going to start, and since we're already on the topic of special teams, I'll just wrap that part up because that was one of my keys to the game. As you said, kickers need to make kicks. Bushini needs to make accurate punts. Bushini's making good distance punts. I know he had a couple that were like line drives in that Illinois game, but he's making good distance punts. But Matt Rule kind of mentioned it, how he's punting it to the wrong side of the field. You're setting up a coverage going to the left, you punt it to the right. Now the entire team has to run all the way across the field. That's where you get those big return yards. Illinois got like over 100 return yards in that game alone. That's a ton of yards that you're just giving the offense just on returns. And as of right now, special teams has been the weakness of the team. I think specifically field goal kickers. I know Alvano's been hurt, but he's missed. I think he might have missed a couple. Obviously, we had the miss last week. It just needs to be improvement, and I think something's not clicking mentally for these kickers. And you hear it all the time. Most of kicking is mental, and I don't know if it's just the misses or the pressure's just getting to them. It's a few young kickers on our team. Alvano's a true sophomore. Hull is a freshman. We have another kicker that's another freshman. It's a bunch of young kickers, and hopefully bringing in Brett Maher, who has been assigned to the staff, or has been actually signed to the staff at Nebraska to help these kickers, helps that a little bit. I know he's been helping all season. Hopefully he can make some quick progress, but the mental game, I just think, needs to be better, and I hope it doesn't come down to it, but it could very well come down to a field goal in this game.
Yeah, no, it could. It could in any Big Ten game. Um, yeah, any Big Ten game out there, it could come down to a field goal. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, like Big Ten is watched to be close, hard fought games. So that's definitely what you could have any game, any week. So my first key, um, to this game is defensively we have to force third downs. Um, Purdue is currently 3 for 21 on third down, and so I mean, to be honest with you, it seems like if we can get them to third down, then we get the ball back. But what you can't do, don't get me wrong, Hudson Card is not a terrible quarterback. The dude has played really well before. I think Hudson Card has beat us before, if I'm not wrong. 2 years
Mm,
ago
possibly. Yeah, you might be right. You might be right.
when we had oh, what was that receiver?
Because last year we won.
Correct.
So
The year
I
before
guess
that,
Casey Thompson and Trey Palmer, did they lose
yes,
to Purdue?
they did because Trey Palmer
I'll
went
look
off
it up.
and ended up losing that game. I do. I'm pretty sure they ended up losing that
Keep
game.
talking. I'll look it up.
But yeah, anyway, so Hudson Card's actually not a bad quarterback. They have a pretty good receiver as well. He's averaging like 60 yards receiving and a touchdown a game right now. But if you can force them on third downs, seems as if they just don't know how to convert. And so defensively, yeah, if we can get them to third down, I think that's going to help us tremendously in this game.
Yeah. So Purdue did beat us with Casey Thompson and Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer was the leading rusher with 60 yards and the leading receiver. He had 7 catches for 237 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
It was not Hudson Card. It was Aiden O'Connell was the quarterback.
Okay. Yep.
Charlie Jones. That was Charlie Jones. Big game
Yep.
at receiving. Devin Mockabee, who's still on the Purdue team, ran for 178 yards and a touchdown. He's their starting running back this year. So yeah, that's happened before. Obviously, last year it was a little bit different. Nebraska kind of allowed them to come back a little bit in that game, but really dominated the entire game. Speaking of dominate, that's my next, key to the game is Nebraska needs to dominate up front. I don't know what's happened since Colorado. I mentioned it. I don't know if it's just a hangover or what. This game should not be close in the trenches. Notre Dame dominated Purdue in the trenches. And I'm not saying Nebraska has the same O-line as Notre Dame, but coming into this year, we expected this D-line to be one of the best in the conference at least. And Notre Dame has a really good D-line. They're known for their play in the trenches. Nebraska needs to be known for that too. And I think Nebraska's D-line is as talented as anybody's in the country. You just need to put it all together. Haven't been able to do that. I think this is the game where you need to start figuring that out because the D line is pretty much the engine of this defense. And when the D line's not getting pressure, you're allowing guys to get open. When your D line's not stopping their run, you're getting those 4 to 5 yards a play. Purdue may have the worst offensive line that we've seen so far, besides UTEP. At least Colorado has like potential talent. Like they've got 1 5-star, they've got a couple former 4-stars, I think. They've got some good transfers in there who've played Power 5 football. I don't think Purdue's offensive line is good at all. And for the defense to be at the level that we expect, the D-line just needs to get back on track and needs to get after Hudson Card. Because if you just let him sit back there and throw, he's an accurate passer. The only problem this year is he's been under pressure a lot. That's why you get into those, 3 for 21 on third downs. That's why you get into those long third downs that they can't complete because they haven't been able to be on schedule. And Nebraska needs to keep that going.
Yeah. My second key to the game is the offense just needs to I don't know the word for it, but essentially just drive down the field effortlessly, quickly. A lot like what the first 2 drives against UNI looked like, right? There wasn't no huddle. It wasn't hurry up offense by any means, but it looked efficient and it looked effortless and it looked really, really good. And I think if you can do that for the first couple drives, get a couple 3 and outs, next thing you know, it's in the first quarter, you're up 21-0. it's into the first half, you're up 28-7, you kind of coast from there, and you play boring football from for the last half of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. You end up winning. You win 35-10. Cool. And you get out of there with a win. You look really good, and you look like the Nebraska team that everyone thinks is the Nebraska team that I think they are. But yeah, I think you have to be efficient and quick and score on the first few drives on offense, and really set the tone there.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you need a fast start on both sides of the ball. If Purdue comes out at home and scores on their first drive and then turns around and stops Nebraska, that's a bad start. That is 1000% momentum all to Purdue. And then it's going to be hard to climb back from that. I think it's possible. I just think Nebraska needs to either get the ball first, go down and score, or Purdue gets the ball first, 3 and out. Just needs to be a tough stop. Needs to show that the defense is where it should be and that this game is going to be dominated by Nebraska. But yeah,
this is Purdue's homecoming and is apparently a sellout, but I do remember 2021 was supposed to be a sellout as well. It looked like the stadium was about quarter full. So
yeah, the tickets may all be sold, but we'll see how many of those tickets are actually used. But yeah, my last key to the game: don't let last week's mistakes beat you twice. I know it sounds like a cliche. Coaches say it all the time. You can't let one bad game beat you twice, but it's true. The mistakes we made last week, you can either fix them or you can overanalyze them, dwell on them, come into this week, feeling sorry for yourself. Then you get into that fourth quarter, maybe it's a close game, you're feeling tight again, you go on to lose the game. You cannot let that happen. You have to come out fast. You have to forget about last week. It has to be a mental reset, and this is a new week. You need to show people that Nebraska is who they think they are and come out and just dominate, like Zach said. So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
My final key, I think the last few weeks I've really said, establish the run. The run has been established. It's established throughout the entire country. Nebraska can run the ball and most of the time stop the run. This week, I want to establish, that play action game. I want to establish Isaiah Nair. I want to establish, Jamal Banks. I want to see Thomas Fidone go off. I want to see us be able to put the ball in the air when needed and go down and score with it. I know we can run the ball. Now we can run the ball when we need to, and we can also run the ball to set up those passes. Now with that, you have a great working offense out there. But yeah, getting those receivers in the game, because I feel like we haven't quite seen them yet.
Yeah. So now getting into our score predictions, before we get to the Vegas spreads, I want to mention some stats. There's a reason Nebraska is a big favorite in this game. Nebraska is averaging 251 passing yards per game, while Purdue is only averaging 88. Nebraska is averaging 149 rushing yards a game. Purdue's defense is averaging 333 yards allowed per game. Nebraska is only allowing 79 yards per game. Purdue actually has technically a better rushing offense than Nebraska, averaging 150. It's only by a yard, and I think Nebraska has played, I can't even say Nebraska's played tougher opponents because Purdue's played Notre Dame, but Purdue's only averaging 14 points a game. Nebraska's averaging 30. So it's a big disparity in these stats. Neither team has played, or Nebraska hasn't played anybody as tough as Notre Dame, so the stats might be a little skewed in that aspect. But everything is pointing to Nebraska, and the Vegas spread is currently, as of Wednesday night when we're recording this, Nebraska's a 10-point favorite with an over-under 47. So Nebraska is projected to win 28-18 from Vegas. I'm projecting it to be more than that. I know I said the same thing last week. I thought Nebraska was going to handle Illinois. They didn't. Illinois is a better team than I thought. Nebraska didn't play as well as I thought they would. That just ended in a close loss, obviously. But I think Nebraska, just at every single position, is better. I think Purdue has an edge rusher that's really good. That might be better than, maybe better than Jamari Butler, at least probably the same. But other than that, it's all Nebraska. Nebraska is more talented than this team. They have better receivers. They have better skill positions. They have better defensive backfield. They have better linebackers. They have a better D-line as a whole. Offensively, I think Dylan Raiola at this point is a better quarterback than Hudson Card. Hudson Card's pretty good, but as we see, Dylan Raiola, I've seen people saying Dylan Raiola might be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. I don't know if I'd go that far yet, but yeah, it's definitely an argument to be made. The running backs as a whole, I know Purdue has a guy, but Nebraska has like 4 guys. Not worried about them at all. So I think Nebraska comes out, and I think Nebraska rebounds from last week. I think they show that this is a new team. This isn't the same team that's going to lose a close game and then let that loss kind of trickle into the next game. I think it's going to be like Michigan last year. I know Illinois was a closer win or closer loss than Michigan was, but I think they're going to respond the same way and come out and win, 4 straight if they need to. I think winning 4 straight would have us beating Ohio State, but win a few games in a row, and I think Nebraska comes out, punches them in the mouth. I think Nebraska gets up big early, and I think they keep that lead in the second half. 34-13 is my final prediction. So Nebraska obviously covers the spread, and then the over actually, it would be a push. It would be a push. It would be exactly 47. So 34-13 is my final score.
Yeah, mine's pretty close to that. Essentially everything that you said, I think defensively we come out, they're not able to really do a whole lot. I think offensively we come out fast. We get it done in the first half. I think we kind of coast in the second half. I think this game's over by the end of the third quarter. Do I like that? I don't know. I feel like we do need to be tested in the fourth again before Ohio State, but
Right.
I don't think this is the game that's going to happen in. I think the final score for this game is going to be 31-14, so pretty close to yours. In mine, the under does hit. The spread, Nebraska does cover as well. But yeah, I think that's how this one's going to end. I think it's, like I said, going to be decided pretty early that we're going to be the winning team.
Yeah. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the bell, follow us on socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. Comment down below your score prediction as well. I know some Illinois fans were having some fun last week with the the title was 6 reasons Nebraska will beat Illinois. So obviously, that was a tough comment section after that, but comment your score prediction, comment why you think Nebraska will win or lose, I guess. But yeah, Zach, you got anything else?
Not right now.
All right, without further ado, go Big Red.
If we die, we die! If we die, we die!